Hi everyone, welcome to my second video. For this video, I wanted to do soft-spoken because that is actually what I prefer to watch myself. So I thought it would be fun to try it out. It's currently 1:08 a.m. So it's like 1 in the morning, and I can't sleep, and I wanted to make a video. My iPad, what I'm currently filming on, is at like 5%, so I was thinking that we can just make a quick little video. And this video, I want to read Reddit scary stories. When I was younger, I was obsessed with this book in the library. Actually, there were a few books from the same series, but it was called Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And I would check it out at the library like every other week. And I don't know why anybody wasn't concerned, but I grew up to love horror. I love horror books, I love horror movies, stories. I love it. So I want to combine two of my hobbies, ASMR and horror, and I thought it would be fun if we read some Reddit r/scary stories together. So let's read this first one, called My Girlfriend Came Home from a Trip She Never Took. I thought she was acting weird at first. For some clarification, my girlfriend had been planning a trip to California for the last 4 months. Normally, I'd have gone with her, but it was for her grandmother's birthday. She was old, and this could have quite possibly been my girlfriend's last chance to take a trip with her. She had spent most of those 4 months meticulously planning, as she always did, and the week before the trip, she must have had at least 5 full bags packed for her week-long venture. You can never be too careful, she always told me. She was always the planning type, mapping things out, going over every possibility. It was one of the things I admired about her. She hated when things didn't go the way they were supposed to. That's why, on the day of her trip, when I woke up to find her still lying in bed with me long after her early morning flight, I almost panicked. I shook her awake frantically. Her eyes slowly rolled open. She groggily asked why I was waking her. And when I told her the time, she didn't react how I expected her to. Instead of panicking herself or even calling her mom to let her know she missed her flight, she simply rolled back over and shut her eyes again. "Oh yeah," she groaned, "the flight. Honestly, it should be okay." "Be okay?" I responded, a bit flabbergasted. "Don't you think you should at least call and let them know?" I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't force her. I was just shocked, I guess. I just thought that maybe she had already talked to her mom and grandma. Maybe something had come up and she forgot to tell me. I just went to work like everything was normal. When I came back, she was still at home. She looked absent. I found her sitting on the couch, staring at a black TV screen. When I greeted her, she snapped out of it. "Honey, I'm so glad you came home. Tell me everything that happened at work today." We spent the whole night chatting, but it was like her mind was somewhere else. I'd catch her drifting off into outer space. She thought too long about her responses. Her speech seemed slower than normal, even though her face was one of excitement as we talked. "Hun, did anything happen to make you not want to go on your trip?" She stared at me for a while. Her smile disappeared. Her face went blank, but only for a split second before lighting up again. "No, not that I know of," she responded cheerily. Why do you ask? Just wondering, I replied cautiously. The next few days were weird. She never seemed to want to leave the house. I mean, not that I could blame her. She had already taken off of work for the trip, but I figured she'd at least want to go out to the park or something. It was one of her favorite things to do. She also wasn't eating much. Every night I'd cook for us, but she kept insisting she wasn't hungry. Must have been a lie though, because on some of those nights long after we'd gone to bed, I'd find her in the kitchen completely surrounded by food. Cereal boxes would be ripped open with their contents scattered across the floor. Granola bar wrappers, spilled milk, raw rice and beans. It was concerning to say the least. By the end of the week, something hit me that I hadn't caught before. It was like a dim light bulb lit over my head, and I approached her timidly. "Honey?" I carefully inquired. "Yes, sweet boy of mine," she replied lovingly, sitting on the edge of our bed, staring at a wall. I gulped a bit. "Whatever happened to your bags? Did you unpack them? I haven't seen your toothbrush or shampoo anywhere." She didn't respond. She just kept staring like the wall was the TV. Finally, she slowly turned around. Her hollow eyes met mine. "Honey," she whispered gleefully, "you know that's none of your business." She didn't seem mad, but she refused to talk to me for the next 2 days. She didn't even want to sleep in the same bed as me. Of course, I'd have felt wrong making her sleep on the couch, so I just let her have the bed while I wallowed in my own confusion. It wasn't until the night before she was supposed to return from the trip that she let me sleep with her again, and even then she slept with her back toward me. I woke up in the middle of the night to a ruckus coming from the kitchen. I stepped out of my room and noticed that the kitchen light was on. It sounded like an animal was loose in there, like it was in the process of devouring something. Growls, the wet sound of chewing, but as I approached, the sound suddenly stopped. I froze in my tracks for a few seconds, debating whether or not I should continue before ultimately deciding to keep going. Only when I took that last step, I heard my girlfriend's voice. It was angrier than I'd ever heard her, more hostile, like she was trying to send a message. "Go back to bed," she screamed. The house was silent for a moment. I argued with myself internally about whether or not to listen or check on her. I decided to listen. The moment I began making my way back to the bedroom, the noises started again. I don't know how long I lay there, staring up at the ceiling, trying to tell myself that everything was normal before falling back asleep. But I know that I woke up alone the next morning. The bathroom was empty, the halls were empty, the house was empty. I kept calling out and received no response, but when I entered the kitchen, that's when the panic really set in. There was blood everywhere, not from my girlfriend, but from the raw meat that was scattered across the floor. Chicken, steak, pork, everything had been nearly completely eaten. I thought back to the night before, and my heart started to pound. I felt dizzy, like I was losing it. I tried to take a seat to calm myself, but before I could, the front door opened. "Honey," my girlfriend sang, "I'm home. Can you come help me with these bags? I've got so much to tell you." Wow. That's intense. All right. Let's see, there's two. I want to find a good one. Okay, let's do this one. I work at a diner in the middle of nowhere. The manager has only one rule: don't ask the customers about the meat. The food industry is absolutely abysmal. At least I think it is. I've never worked at a restaurant that's particularly poppin', as the kids like to say. I'm basing my opinion solely off of this one particular diner. We're essentially just a rest stop for truckers. At least we would be if any ever came through here. We see maybe 1 or 2 truckers a month, if we're lucky. Even still, usually they take one look at the place and peel off down that desolate highway. Do you know how bad it is when not even truckers will eat at your establishment? Those guys essentially survive off of Slim Jims and pork rinds. That doesn't really matter to me though. I took this job for the peace and quiet. I've been missing that peace more and more these days. Customers are starting to become more frequent. I know, that's a good thing. Only I just don't know if that's true or not. See, I've been working this job for around 6 years now. Started right before COVID really took the world hostage. We used to get customers all the time before the whole shitstorm. Then we had to do the whole lockdown thing with the masks and the social distancing. We don't do DoorDash over here. I told Ricky 1,000 times, we have got to do DoorDash. Okay, like seriously, or Uber Eats, or I don't know, man, something. Anything would actually help us sell a few plates. He just wouldn't have it. Told me everyone's too far away. Food delivery services will lead to the downfall of civilization. I'm screwed then. Ricky was always a weird guy. He opened this place with his dad right before he passed away. Not sure why they chose this location, but hey, at least there's cellular service. Which is really fucking weird considering the highway is pretty much a complete dead zone for at least 30 miles in each direction. Anyway, sorry, I'm rambling a bit. After COVID, the business really started to dwindle. We went from around 10 to 15 customers a day all the way down to maybe one per day around the end of 2020. Ricky was stressed to hell all the time. He'd wander the restaurant mopping all day, wondering what he was going to do, not knowing where he could turn. It was honestly depressing to watch. I had to miss out on a lot of paychecks around that time too, but what was I going to do? Leave him? I was his only employee. Me and him were holding the business up on our backs. When things started to look grim, I'd catch him a few times early in the morning, turning the gas stoves on and dousing the flames. I'll do it, I'll fucking do it, he told me, threatening to flicker his light. Hell, I had to wrestle a jerry can out of his hand a few times. All I'm saying is Ricky carried that lighter for a reason. That man had never smoked a day in his life. It got to the point where I was too afraid to even leave him alone. He literally lived in the diner, slept in his office. He didn't even have a car, which now I'm thinking about it is kind of insane. I never saw him arrive, never saw him leave. It was like him and the restaurant were intertwined. So when he got desperate, I doubt he went to extreme lengths to get things fixed. After the stove incident and the whole jerry can fiasco, I think that's when I really reached that level of desperation. He wasn't mopping anymore. That man was plotting. I just didn't know what. One day I came to work to find him happier than he should have been, kicked back in his office chair, whistling to himself. Honestly, I didn't even feel like dealing with all of that. I drove 50 miles to get to work today, had to wake up at 4 a.m, couldn't even listen to the Joe Rogan Experience because of the lack of cell service. All I wanted was to put my apron on, then maybe play on my phone a little since I knew I'd have no one to cook for. I wiped down a few counters, chased a few rats away with a broom. Oh, also, I had to bat away a particularly large spider. It sort of made a metallic noise when it hit the ground. It ran away sounding like one of those spring-loaded door stoppers I used to play with as a kid. Anyway, sorry, I can't stop rambling. God, what's wrong with me? I had just begun to sit down and scroll on my phone when Ricky stepped out of his office, hands clasped behind his face, smug look on his already plastered across his face. Well, he inquired, leering over me like Michael Jackson performing Smooth Criminal, aren't you going to ask me? I sighed and slid my phone in my pocket. I knew this was going to be a long conversation. Ask you what, Rich? Go ahead. I know you want to tell me. He pushed his forehead back, pretending he had still had hair there before sneering pridefully. You know, ask me why I'm so happy? Why are you so happy? I fixed it. He stared at me like he expected me to know exactly what he meant. I just thought he was having another one of his manic episodes. Knowing him, fixed it could range anywhere from fixing the leaky faucet in the bathroom to killing his ex-wife. I pulled out my pack of Winstons and packed it against my palm. Fixed what? The leaky faucet in the restaurant, kid. His eyes were frantic but excited. He looked like a, crackhead, kind of. Pulling up a chair in front of me, he glared out the window and towards the highway. Our woes are no more. The vile, treacherous fingertips of despair no longer hold dominion over my soul nor my body. I am a vessel of purity, a clean slate with a clear conscience, born again, renewed. This establishment, this location, it is real, Dawn, and I am real. He reaches out to caress my face. I jumped back like he was a leper. Dude, what the fuck are you doing? Don't do that weird shit. I just got here. He drew his hands back, but I was still eyeballing him. "You're real, Don." There were tears in his eyes, but he had a smile on his face. I thought for a moment about his question. I honestly don't know how to answer him. "You know what, Rick? I fucking hope so." Rick stood up and clasped his hands together before walking towards the back. He returned with a broom in one hand and a mop in another. Apparently, he wanted to place the place spick and span for some VIP guest that was supposed to show up at some point. We cleaned the restaurant top to bottom twice. I shoveled the contents of the grease trap outside into buckets, which I then proceeded to dump on the ground about 300 yards from the diner. Then I had to clean the buckets. God, it was so hot that day. I don't even know why I'm telling you this. It doesn't even really matter. What matters most is that the guests didn't come until almost sundown. Hell, we didn't see any guests, period. I was supposed to be getting off in a few hours, but Rick just wouldn't relent. "He's coming. He's on his way. Trust me, he'll be here." 9 o'clock rolled around. Quitting time. I bid Ricky goodnight and was about to walk out the door when someone stopped me. He placed his hand on my shoulder coldly. "Don," he whispered. "Yeah, Rick?" He stared at me blankly, no life behind his eyes whatsoever. "He's coming." I scoffed and tried to pull my arm away, but he tightened his grip. "Trust me, you'll want to see this. But also, if you leave, I'll kill you." His eyes didn't flicker. He didn't smile. No sign whatsoever that he was joking. I even tried to force a chuckle out of him a bit by nervously laughing, but he didn't budge. My smile faded. I set my backpack down and walked back to the counter, sighing loud and long enough to understand how goddamn annoyed I was. I played Angry Birds on my phone for an hour or two. Ricky just kept standing at the window, watching that desert highway with his hands clasped behind his back. He never moved an inch. 11 o'clock rolled around. This time, I was already planning on sleeping in my car. I had to be back by 6 a.m. the next morning anyway. I gave it another hour before going to approach Rick at the window. I waved my hand in front of his face. "All right, boss, I think it's time we shut it down. What do you say?" No response. "Don't worry, I won't go far. Probably gonna sleep in my car tonight." No response. "All right, well, I'll be seeing ya." I put my hand on the door handle and went to twist it. Ricky's hand shot over and clasped around my wrist. I don't know what kind of workouts this fucker does in his free time, but good lord, man. I mean, that shit actually hurt. I was about to scold him when I saw him pointing towards the door, the dark desert with his other hand. "He's here." I looked at what he was staring at. All I could see was blackness. And, well, that and the glow of the neon storefront. But the longer I watched, the more it came into view. He started off as a speck, maybe a quarter mile out, emerging from the darkness. Then he grew taller and taller and taller. By the time he was 50 feet out, I realized why Rick said this guy was a VIP. He must have been 8 feet tall. His arms swung at his sides as he walked in. He wore a surprisingly clean blue suit and clutched a briefcase in his right hand. Ricky finally released my wrist and basically pushed me away from the door while he held it open for our guest. The man smelled like chemicals and burning plastic, and his skin was almost unnaturally smooth. He had to duck down to get inside, and even when he was inside, his head almost touched the ceiling. Ricky looked ecstatic, like this was some long-lost friend of his. I hate when he's like that because he starts pushing me around like I'm his employee or something, demanding I get drinks, snapping at me to rev up those fryers. Like, okay, this guy was different though. He didn't want anything to drink. It was like, I don't know, a business transaction or something. Like he was only there for one reason and one reason only. The first thing he did was calmly place his briefcase on the table. He dusted off some sand, which was annoying because, dude, I just cleaned that. But then he unlocked it and opened it. I got to see what this guy had apparently just been dragging through the desert. If I had to describe what the contents of that briefcase looked like, I'd say something like mounds upon mounds of chewed bubblegum, only veinier. I'd argue it looked a little slimier too. The pulsations is what got me though. Don't even get me started on the smell. Just seeing it made me want to vomit, but the smell, Christ above, I could have passed out from those fumes. I was about to ask him what the hell he just brought into our restaurant, but as soon as my mouth opened, Ricky stamped on my foot. "I'll take that," he chuckled to the guest, ignoring my screams of agony and despair. He carried it to the kitchen as it dripped all over the floor. Yet again, I had just cleaned. The meat touched the grill and immediately began to sizzle, only it didn't sound like sizzling. It sounded like 1,000 tiny screams. Never ask them about the meat. He said it so nonchalantly, like it was some grand truth about everyone in the world knew except for me. I asked him who is them, and the only answer he gave me was our new clientele. It went from about a foot long, maybe 8 inches, the meat went from about a foot long, maybe 8 inches thick, and crinkled down to the size of no more than a regular T-bone steak by the time it was done. Rick served it to the businessman anxiously, expecting like he was a contestant on MasterChef. I think he thought the guy was going to eat it. I mean, hell, that's why I thought he was going to too. Instead, he picked up the meat off the plate and stuffed it into his briefcase. Then he smiled at Rick, satisfied as if he did eat it, before pulling his wallet out of his pocket. He counted out $3,000 in hundreds and set it on the table wordlessly. He then stood up, walked out, and disappeared into the darkness. I should have probably asked Rick what the fuck had just happened, but I was bordering on sleep-deprived delirium. All I cared about was finally curling up in my seat and maybe getting some sleep if I was lucky. Thankfully, Rick was too busy dancing and throwing his money in the air to notice me as I walked out of the parking lot. I didn't get the sleep that I hoped for that night. I ended up clocking back in the next morning, running on 2 hours and like 6 cups of coffee as the day went on. I did ask Rick about the whole don't ask him about the meat thing, though. Apparently it's classified information that only he can know. Apparently if I break the rule, he'll kill me dead. Whatever though, that's just the way the cookie crumbles, I suppose. Plus he wasn't lying about these people being our new clientele. Ever since that incident, we see at least 3 of them a week. The dinner has been strange to say the least. I still don't know exactly what Rick did to fix this place, but I mean, hey, it's working, even if we don't see many real customers these days. Weird. I think my iPad is about to die, so I want to make this outro quick, but if you're still here, thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you like the soft-spoken more than the whispering, and I will see you guys soon. Good night.